ora, Sue Gray here, co-leader of the New Zealand Outdoors Party. We've had a really big week in Parliament this week, appearing before the Regulations Review Committee. And that was on our complaint about 5G, what they call the National Environment Standard for Telecommunications Facilities regulations. We lodged this complaint way back in January, complaining about cell towers and 5G infrastructure being rolled out all around New Zealand without any consultation and based on a really old standard that was written in 1999, basically by the telcos. And it's a standard that is up to 100 or even 1,000 times more lax or more lenient than some of the best standards around the world. So it was a pretty big day in Parliament. We had a massive crowd, standing room only. People came from all over Wellington, but actually some came from as far away as Kaitaia and Tauranga, and I obviously came from Nelson. And it was a big day. It was a big day, and it was great to finally be in Parliament. I was going to say it was a bit disappointing, but then I'm always disappointed when I appear before parliamentary committees because we've spent so much time putting effort in understanding the issue, and the politicians have got 15 minutes to hear our issue and consider it. They often have no background knowledge whatsoever. They don't really care. And the two lawyers on the select committee, Duncan Webb for the Labour Party and Sarah Dowie for the National Party, weren't even on the committee the day we were there. And that's ironic because it's a Regulations Review Committee that's supposed to be looking at the legality of these regulations. So we are delighted that we could present our complaint. We were unsurprised that the government representatives had no answers to our complaint, and they didn't even try and answer some of the matters that we raised. We've left the complaint with the Select Committee. We've got some more information to provide to them to answer some of the matters that were raised with the government's representatives. And we're really hoping that this Select Committee, this representative group of the public of New Zealand, will listen to what we said, will apply the law, will come out and accept that the 1999 standards that protect only against the heating effects of radiation are grossly inadequate. They don't even try to protect against vulnerable members of the community. They don't even try to protect against damage to the DNA, changes on mental health, any of what they call the biological effects. They don't even mention the effects on birds and bees and cows and other animals. So we are really hoping that they'll take this opportunity to say the regulations are unlawful, they're not providing for the sustainable management of New Zealand, and they should be revoked. It's really difficult when you have 15 minutes with a half a dozen or so politicians who have got no particular interest or expertise in this subject, and many of them look like they're more interested answering their cell phones and reading their computers than listening to people who have travelled around New Zealand to present a legitimate concern. It's one thing that I've learned. When we're in Parliament, if people take the time to come and talk to us, we'll listen to them. We won't do other activities. We did get a few questions, but one of the questions that was really ironic was to say, well, we're just politicians, how are we supposed to know? Well, my answer is that is not good enough. If you don't understand the matters before you, you need to go away and research and ask questions and understand what people are there for. It's pretty simple. The standards are very difficult to access. You have to pay $145 to buy a copy if, as a member of the public, you want to be involved in reading them. They're almost incomprehensible. They're full of complicated calculus and other formulas. They are not ever designed as regulations in the clear, transparent way that we are entitled to expect. So at that level, every MP on that select committee must be able to understand they're inadequate. The technicalities are different. They've got some bad advice from their officials. They've got advice from telcos. Now they've had advice from the public and from me as a lawyer. Their team could not answer those concerns. So here's hoping that they'll go away and they'll have a good old think about what the public was there for, and they'll remember who they're representing, and that's us, not the telcos, and they'll strike out those regulations. The telcos weren't invited to attend this committee, and the reason for that is it was about the legality of regulations. And our argument was that the regulations do not achieve the purposes of the Resource Management Act, so they're contrary to the standing orders. It wasn't about whether 5G is a good or a bad thing, that's for another day. Our issue there is, do we even need 5G, especially when we've got 3G, 4G and fibre optic cable. But the purpose of this inquiry we had this week is simply whether those regulations which exempt radio frequency, cell towers, all the new infrastructure from all the usual RMA requirements are lawful regulations, and we say that they're not. We say if you need to go and get a resource consent and consult with your neighbours for putting up a big sign on your fence or an extension to your veranda, then the telcos need to go and get a resource consent and consult with their neighbours if they want to put a new big cell tower outside your bedroom window. It's as simple as that.